Hey, well, what's up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 72 of the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Blackaby, and I am joined on this lovely day by the one, the only Nyah Carlson. How are you doing today, Nyah?
Lovely. How are you?
I am doing well. This is a good day. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of things going on in our culture. A lot of things, we're I know for parents and stuff out there, like spring break or winter breaks and stuff and school breaks. And I don't know, this is a good time of year. We're kind of settled into things. So I'm feeling good. And I think there's some interesting stuff for us to get into this week on the podcast. A couple, got at least two kind of topics to dive into that I think are um, not necessarily like topical, like a big controversy or like the Super Bowl like last week, but I think some general questions and stuff for Christians to talk about. And the first one, and it made me think of you actually a bit because I know you, not to make you feel too snobby, but you are a film school graduate,
I
so you look down upon
It's
us.
very practical.
Uh, um, and I came across an article that kind of went viral, at least if you're in the circles that I am
At the academic world.
digitally. An article kind of about film school and about film classes that I thought was interesting, beyond just the question of like film school, but just I think it speaks to some issues, some cultural trends as far as like how we engage with media in ways that maybe aren't helpful or
Mhm.
that could be concerning to Christians. So the article, it was published in The Atlantic by the person that wrote it was Rose Horowitz, and the article is called "The Film Students Who Can No Longer Sit Through Films." And then the subtitle, "The Attention Span Crisis Goes to the Movies." And essentially, we'll link the article, but essentially the thrust of the article is like there's sort of being the established complaint that like kids these days, they don't even read books anymore. They just
Mhm.
watch movies and they can't concentrate to
Mhm.
read a book. And the articles essentially are making the point, based on their interviews with a bunch of film professors and students, and
Mhm.
that, well, actually, like that nowadays, kids these days don't even really watch movies because they can't
Yeah.
focus to watch movies. And I will give the caveat at the start before we get too into it that
Mhm.
almost without fail, whenever there's like and the article is not necessarily doing this, but like the younger generation and their phones, and it's like, well, just go anywhere and like look at the baby boomers, and like they're all on their phones too. Like the
I
same
think
trends and stuff
more
are.
so,
Yeah, or,
honestly.
like the attention span and like,
Mhm.
like you're at church and stuff and you still have the boomers that are out there with their phones. Like it's never just sort of the kids,
Mhm.
those darn kids that can't focus. It's like, this is all of us. This is just the water that we swim in.
Mhm.
Um, but the article kind of breaks down, talking to some film people that like, and again, this is like film classes. So these are people that
Mhm.
like signed up to be to be in
And
the
paid
class.
for it, yeah.
And I will say, like, I'm married to an art teacher who teaches a high school art elective, and like oftentimes these sort of classes are not because people care about them; it's because
Mhm.
they dislike the other options. It's like, oh, this is the easy. Instead of doing like some math elective, I'll just go watch movies, and it's sort of the easy way out. So it does make sense that they're, even though people signed up, they don't necessarily
Well,
mean that
it
they
depends
care.
on which like, if it's history of motion pictures, like, that's one that you probably have to take that a lot of times is an elective or a prereq that you have to take, but I don't know if they're referring to that class or if they're referring to, like, upper level theory classes, because that's very different, you know?
Yeah, it's sort of at a certain point, it's like if you can't even watch a movie, then like sign up sign up for a different class.
Yeah.
Um, but there's some interesting stuff about that like they just can't. These students just struggle to watch through, to sit through, and like and to like digest it, like to be able to tell what's going on, either because they're distracted, they're looking at other screens, or they find it
Mhm.
too much of without changing. They're used to more the rapid pace, like TikTok
Mhm.
scrolling algorithm type stuff, and to watch like a 2-hour movie, especially one that's maybe a bit older, is like, so like in the article it gets through, like it gets into like some of the tests and stuff. So clearly people have no idea what's going on in these movies that they apparently just watched. And like there was a couple quotes from this that pull out, and we can kind of get into it. One, this is from a student that's being quoted in the article. It says there were some movies that were extremely slow paced, and ironically, that was the point of the movie. She told me, but I guess impatience made me skip through stuff, or and we can both cringe at the same time for this. Watch it on 2 times speed.
No, but
Um,
I've done that because we had to
oh,
watch.
you
No,
monster!
let me explain myself. I did it on
You
Birth
had
of a
better.
Nation. Birth of a Nation, first of all, because it's 3 hours long and it's like a racist KKK film. So I watched that, I think, on 3 times speed. And then there was another one called, I think, Man with the Camera, which is like a pinnacle film. Okay, I admit it's really good, but you don't need to watch that at regular speed. It's also like really long, and all that it is a montage of the city, of random shots of the city. So those are the ones that I fast forwarded, okay? But
Well,
so if
you,
that's what she's talking about, I understand.
so you can both go to the same confession booth to repent of your
Have you
monstrous.
seen Birth of a Nation?
I have not.
Okay,
See,
watch that. Watch it on regular time speed and get back to me, okay?
because I know that this even gets back to like audiobooks and stuff. It's like at a certain point, just have you really listened to it? Have you really watched it? If you just like, woohoo, check, watch
Yeah.
that. But so watch on 2 times speed, or just skipping through stuff, or just not being able to focus for a variety of reasons. And then the article says, after watching movies distractedly, if they watch them at all, students unsurprisingly can't answer basic questions about what they saw. It'd be like multiple choice questions, and they're like, there's like characters that they think did stuff that aren't even in the movie, and it's just clearly not watching. And one of the things that he touches on, which I know is like it's a phenomenon that I don't think we've ever got into on the podcast, but the second screening, like second screen phenomenon, um, which I mean is totally, I mean, like I think we can all confess to this one because I think we all do this. Like it's like, well, even when we watch stuff these days at home, most of us are on our phones too, or like we're on a laptop or a tablet, and like it's like we're watching, but we're not like full attention. It's like we're also scrolling through things, and we're kind of looking up, we're listening, and kind of this like multi-screening thing. Which, and we don't need to get into it, but I know I have researched some of this, like, and just the idea that like multitasking is a big myth. Like,
Yeah.
no one multitasks. Like, your brain all we do is go back and forth really fast,
Mhm.
but we're not actually focusing on two things at one time.
Mhm.
And I mean, the result is, and maybe some people can go back and forth and retain a bit quicker, but
Mhm.
like we're just diluting what we're actually
Yeah.
retaining, and that's what some
Exactly.
of the that's what some of the in the article kind of gets into, of just sort of part of the problem is we're focused on something other than the story, and it's
Mhm.
not surprising that we can't remember the story. Which I will say, I think an advantage of movie theaters over streaming is, unless you are just a terrible person that's on your phone in a movie theater, it does at least force you still to like engage with a story and focus on it,
Mhm.
as opposed to being drawn a million different ways, which I think is a reason why theaters are important and streaming is
Mhm.
not necessarily um, the answer. But one of the things, and the article touches on it a little bit, doesn't necessarily get too far into it, but I know there's been other conversations about it, of just like, because of these phenomenons, like, it's not just that I guess we're changing to the experience of films, but like the films are changing to accommodate the fact that they know people aren't paying attention. I don't know if you've looked into much of this, or if you even talked about it when you were in your film
I'm
school.
very mad about this. We didn't
Uh,
talk about this. So we always talk about basically don't, whenever you're writing a screenplay, don't cater to what's popular now, because by the time your screenplay is finished, that's going to be old news. So like write what you want to write and write what's interesting to you and what you know or what you want to know. And a lot of times that's going to be end up being a lot better anyways. And so the fact that now I guess, do you want to, you can get more into now how they're changing it, how screenwriters are changing what they're writing to to keep people's
yeah,
attention.
yeah, because I've seen, and I didn't pull a lot of the specific quotes for this, but like I know I've seen interviews with like people that have written movies for things like Netflix, and like some of the like production notes they get of, like where even um like pushback from up the suits up top that like their episodes need to have less going on. Like need to have
Mhm.
more lulls because people are leaving and coming back and like you can't have too much going on because people can't pay attention. Like almost like, dilute it and just have a few moments that will, and have characters like very much articulate
Mhm.
what they're doing all the time or like
Like,
regurgitating the
announce it.
plots
Yeah.
with the understanding that like people watching haven't necessarily paid attention to when you established that 10 minutes ago. So they got to
Yeah.
continually voice what's going on and you can't have too much going on. And um,
That makes me yeah, I'm like, that's like you don't do that. You don't just announce what's happening. That's horrible, horrible, filmmaking. And the fact too that they're changing it just to cater to the audience, like, I get that Netflix is a business, but films should not be created and try and beg people to watch them. People should seek out films to watch it and to appreciate it, and they should be like films should be a conversation between the filmmaker and the audience or between different filmmakers. And if you're just like, we're making this to make money, we're making this to get the views, that's like that's movies, okay? Forgive me for being pretentious. That's not film, that's movies. That's
yeah, that's very much
blockbuster
like
whatever, which is
content,
not yeah, thank
not
you. That's the
it's
right
just
word. That's what I was
um,
looking for.
yeah, yeah, and it's the idea of like, do you water it down to appease the people that aren't really paying attention
Why do you
anyways?
wanna appease them?
Or
Why
do
do you
you
want them to
like
even watch it,
it's
you
like,
know?
hey, maybe they don't know what's going on, and if they wanna know what's going
Yeah.
on, they should just,
Put
turn
down your
off
phone and
TikTok.
watch it.
Which
Yeah.
I will, confess, like, and it was actually before this article, but I even, like, yesterday, I was watching the Olympics, and I've started doing which is a whole different conversation, I've been using, like, an app to, like, block my and I actually don't do a whole lot of social media, like, I just don't care enough about that. I will
Mhm.
play, like, dumb puzzle games or things on my phones, when I have a break, and I notice, like, I do that a lot if I'm watching hockey or sports, or I was watching the Olympics, and I was, like I was yesterday watching the Olympics, and I had my laptop, I was gonna try and do some work while I was watching, and I thought of this, I was like, "Actually, maybe I just gonna watch. I just gonna watch it, I'm
Yeah.
gonna even during commercials, I'm gonna sit there and just either
Mhm.
watch or just talk to someone else in the room, like, I'm not gonna pull my phone up." And I don't know,
Mhm.
it's nice, it's like, "Oh, you can actually just be in the moment and not, like, flipping
Yeah.
back and forth." But I think you touched on the part where we can kinda bring this back to just, the issue of like, what does the church do or should the church care? And I think a lot of, and you see that in the article too, and I've just seen it from talking to people, sort of this like fatalistic mindset of like the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put him back. Like people just don't have attention spans, so either you just lose their what little attention they are giving you, and you become irrelevant, or else you like cater to them and you find ways almost like that's, nothing you can do. This is the world. We just got to live with it. Uh, which I don't know. I find concerning. Like I think there's maybe a degree of truth in that. I tend to think I tend to not be as just accept it like that.
Mhm.
But like in the article, and then we can get it, look at the church too. But it says, but other professors, perhaps concluding that resistance is futile, are adjusting media to the media their students grew up on. Some show shorter films or have students watch movies over multiple sittings. The professor's name, who primarily teaches filmmaking courses, has moved from teaching traditional production methods to explaining how to maximize audience engagement. He asks students to make 3 or 4 minute films, similar to social media edits they see online. After all, that seems to be the only type of video many young people want to watch.
We were
Um,
supposed to make, I think, like 10-minute films, and mine was like or 5-minute films, or 5 to 7 minutes, and I was like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like hitting them with the very much going over the time limit. Anyways,
yeah, it's
that
just
I
yeah,
miss
that's
film school sometimes. Only
hey,
sometimes.
well, they need you back because apparently those that have followed after you can't pay attention to movies. But I guess kind of the question for me for the that I think is relevant is sort of like the idea: like, should we or the church or whoever like kind of meet people where they are and adapt to that their desires or their what they're familiar with, they're accustomed to, or what they can get elsewhere, or should we be countercultural and kind of go against the grain of that, giving them what they need, not what they want, even at the risk of kind of perhaps losing some relevancy and having people. losing some of that engagement because we're not just sort of giving the watered down stuff. And what comes to mind too is like during the pandemic when churches went all online because we had to because we weren't able to meet in person, and just how much of the conversation became about like, well, that's where people are. Like people are online. Like church should be going online. This is the future. We need to meet them where they are, and that was sort of the by necessity. And it seems like I, pretty quickly after that, like the numbers essentially reverted back to normal. Of no, like digital church is not the same. Like it has
Mhm.
its advantages if you can't make physical in-person meetings. And I think it's good to have both of those. And our church has both of those. And I don't know about your church, but the idea that like just because people sort of live so much of their lives online doesn't necessarily mean that's what's best for them or that we
Mhm.
should just sort of give them more of what they already have. It's like, well, maybe we should actually offer, in a world of digital, disembodiment, like maybe we should sort of plant our flag and like, no, like come shake someone's physical hand and sit beside them
Yeah.
and talk to them and like get to know them and let them see your face and pay attention without folding laundry and doing other stuff while you're watching the sermon. And it seems like
Mhm.
a lot of churches realize that. And I kind of wonder the same thing for some of this, like how much of sort of, the faith entertainment or faith uh, churches just delivering our message and stuff. Like, I don't know, like, is the future just a bunch of like, hey, they can't pay attention, so like, give them the gospel in 20 seconds and give them a bunch of little short things that they can kind of flip through along with other things, or I don't know, like, what, like,
In
where do
I think it's
you?
both. I think it's
Well,
both.
that's
I
not helpful.
think
I need a definitive
well, let
answer
me
right now.
explain
Okay.
myself. There's definitely ways we can engage, like on social media, to try and get people to come out to church and to make it seem enticing. Like, oh, here's a community of people that will challenge you and that will grow you and that will be by your side when you need them. Like, that's one really good use of phones and social media that we have. But also, like, Christianity is countercultural and always has been and probably always will. It's like I think the church can if it comes to a point that that conversation is really needed, the church can be a resource to explain why having, um, a longer attention span is important and ways that you can fix your attention span. Like, I've seen people trying to fix their attention span by literally just sitting and doing nothing for 15 minutes at a time. There's definitely ways to help that, but
Yeah, and I
you
think that's
can't
important too.
compromise. Yeah,
I
you
think
can't
that, like,
compromise.
I feel like the idea that we just lost the ability to focus, I just don't buy that. Like, I think we just have a lot of bad habits where we immediately look somewhere else. I don't think that it's like, well, we lost some like genetic ability within us and now we can't. I think, I think focus is a teachable skill, and like, I think eliminating habits like blocking your phone or leaving your phone in the other room or different things will help you focus. Like I think it's more removing the distractions, and I just think like the church has. Like I remember I was teaching a class once on like the art, it was like a high school class, and there's like a kid that he kept trying to like, what's the shortest way you can communicate the gospel? And like it was like his goal to get it down. Like he's like, I can do it in I think it was like 4 words or something. And like I just remember thinking like, that's fine, like whatever. If you want to try and as a personal like puzzle or brain teaser, but like it's like, is that the gospel? Like, is the point to get everything down as like quickly and short and like, here's 4 words, you've got the gospel. It's well,
Mhm.
do you have the gospel? Like I mean, it took God longer. Like you got the whole Bible. Like
Yeah.
he didn't give it in 4 words. Like he gave it in
Yeah.
multiple books and pay. Like, it's like there's a lot more to it. And like I think even just Christianity is such like a story centric religion. The gospel is a story, and the Bible is given in stories, and Jesus was a storyteller, and that
Mhm.
I think the trending towards people being unable to, for whatever reason, actually focus on story and follow stories and engage in it beyond just like quick little sound bites like that come rapid fire, I think becomes very much like an issue. Like it is that the church has an interest, it should have should value like helping people learn to focus and like putting an emphasis on that. Because I do think a lot of just our religion, like the faith and the gospel gets lost the
Mhm.
more not that everything needs to be, here's a 5-hour sermon on, exhaustive of what it means to become a Christian. Like, obviously, you know, even what we do normally and what we would think of the norm is very much condensed from what people would have thought was the norm in other countries or
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
100 years ago. And so I don't know. There's a lot of that. I think the thing that I keep coming back to though, and then we can move on, is this the idea that like engagement is not the same thing as impact. And I think in this in the article it talks about making things for engagement, films for engagement. I said, well, like I think you can get engagement. It doesn't necessarily mean you're offering anything of value. I think as
Mhm.
Christians we can do the same thing. We're focused like how do we get the most engagement with our content, our material, our teaching videos or church stuff. And it's like, well, there's ways to do that and go viral and like get in
Mhm.
the algorithm and you have these short clips and but like is that impact? Like is that actually changing, the fact that 10,000 people scrolled through your quick little viral soundbite, like is that necessarily the same thing as
Yeah.
making an impact? And I don't know. So I've been thinking about this article because I do think it is one of those things that like it's not getting better on its own, I guess. Like and it seems like, people can't read books, now they can't even watch movies, and eventually you're gonna reach the point where it's like, okay, like a minute long TikTok video, like no one has time to watch that. Like give me it in 20 seconds. Like it's just
I know.
everything's gonna be
Yeah.
so rapid fire and there's so much more that I think it requires us to be sort of intentional of how do we sort of combat that and go counter cultural. Kind of the other thing I wanted to talk about on this episode, speaking of being intentional, and thinking, speaking of thought-provoking articles that were published online. So there was a great article that was published
It was
by
really good.
Daniel Blackaby on The Collision called
We should
"Faith-Based
try and
Entertainment
hire
is
him.
Good Now." I don't know. I don't know. He charges a pretty high price at that level. But so I wrote an article, kind of this thing I've been thinking about, and we can kind of get into a little bit of it. We'll link the article. Obviously, encourage you guys to read it because I think it's good. I worked hard on it, but
It's
uh,
the cat's pajamas,
yeah,
basically.
the bee's knees, as the kids at least said like 20 years ago. But so faith-based entertainment is good now, but what's the end game? And it's kind of looking at just the way we. I mean, in some ways, there's some carryover from what we just talked about, but just like how do we sort of adapt with the times, and like what is our approach to specifically making content? You know, I hate the word content. Making art, whatever, making material. I don't know what the best word to use for that, but um, like I kind of traced, kind of thinking back to just like my own roots of like when I was like in youth group and growing up, like it was very much the dark days of faith-based entertainment. Like it was like I call it sort of like the alternative phase. Like it's like we're not trying to be Hollywood. We know we can't keep up with it, but Hollywood's terrible and it's going to pervert you and distort your faith and it's just all filth and garbage and you want nothing to do with it. So we're going to give you like just go watch this instead. And like it was, like High School Musical, we got Sunday School Musical. You got this cool rock band, well, we got this not cool rock band, but at least they sing about Jesus. Like it was very much that.
Were you a
It's like
Petra listener? Did you listen to
I
Petra?
I dabbled. They're even I'm a little too young for Petra, although I think they're still touring.
They're still
God bless
kicking
them.
it.
They're still out there doing the Lord's work with their rock and roll Striper, some of those bands. But
Oh,
um,
a Striper was my childhood.
I know we need to get. It's been a goal to get their singer Michael is it Michael Sweet
Yeah.
on the podcast at some point. He just released a solo album, so maybe we'll try and get him on the podcast. But very much sort of that like alternative, like, hey, it's bad, but it's at least it's not Hollywood. And I see that kind of shifted as I got older to more like an infiltration, like, and so well, you know what, like we kind of want to be in Hollywood, like, and it was very not always, but like, it was very kind of sneaky of, sort of like we're smuggling in the gospel to Hollywood and we're going to change it from the inside. And, we're part of Hollywood and we're going to, people are going to come to the movie and not realize it's Christian and then going to drop some gospel on them at the end or, like it's, and very much more like a missional, like evangelistic approach was like kind of the dominant trend. Like, obviously there are people still doing the other stuff. And like, I feel like fast forward to like more recently, we finally sort of reached a place where faith-based stuff was actually good. Like it wasn't just like, okay, well, it's bad, but it's not Hollywood, so you gotta like it. And it wasn't just trying to smuggle in and like blend in. Like it was like, no, like
Mhm.
we're making explicitly faith-based stuff, but we're doing it at a high quality, and you don't need to feel like you're
And
just
we're just
missing out.
yeah, and you're just presenting a story too, we're not preaching at the end of it.
Yeah, and I think it was
For
made
a
by
lot of them, at
like
least.
a lot of the early faith-based films and stuff were made by pastors. Like it was made by
Mhm.
not film people that cared about film, like or understood film. And now it's like, oh, this is actually made by legitimate people that love the medium of film and love cinema and can reference other major films and they kind of know the language of film. Um, and it was like a legitimate and you kind of saw like I would say even like 5 years ago, it was like we sort of reached like the utopia that I know like my growing up, like we imagined of like no, like we're just part of the system. Like we're a legitimate force, like a genre or whatever.
Mhm.
We're in Hollywood. We're making major movies. They're out there. We're just part of it. We're not some side room of the party. Like we're at the table. And it seemed like, and kind of the point of my article, and we can kind of break it down a little bit, is it seems like we finally kind of arrived there, and then things, at least in my eyes, have sort of already been shifting, almost reverting back to like the first of like the alternative of like we sort of got established in Hollywood, and now the trend sort of seems to be like essentially replacing Hollywood. Like we're gonna kind of create our own subculture of entertainment, and a lot of it is based on things, even like the Wonder Project, which again I have no problem with them existing in isolation. I think they're doing good works. They've been good to us with
Yeah.
their materials. Like they make a lot of great stuff.
Mhm.
Like House of David was a big hit. I really liked that show. So nothing wrong, or Angel Studio. Some of these studios and um, but it's sort of it's been shifting more towards sort of okay, well now we're sort of our own thing. Like and I use the Wonder Project because of the House of David show. Like that was very much like a mainstream
Mhm.
breakthrough. It was on Amazon Prime. Anyone could watch it at least for like a couple weeks before it came out, if not a month. Like every package you would order from Amazon had like David on it. Like it had the
Yeah.
show branding. And it was like, oh, like, like you could order whatever. You could order like in the article, I say, an atheist could order like some salacious, filthy novel, 50 Shades of Grey, and it would come in a package with like the biblical King David. And it's like,
Mhm. Mhm. It's
if
like,
we
well,
haven't arrived, like if that's not arriving in Hollywood, then I don't know what is. And the part that kind of got me thinking about this though is like the second, like, I haven't seen the second season of House of David. I
yeah.
don't think a lot of people have. Even though it's been out for months, like, because it's now behind the paywall, the Wonder
Mhm.
Project is kind of it's not specifically faith-based, although it kind of is. It's more like wholesome entertainment. Like they kind of curate it and you got to pay an extra like 8.99 a month or something. And then you can access on Amazon, you can access the Wonder Project's material and it's kind of hidden away.
Mhm.
And I don't know, that seems to be more the trend. Like Angel Studios is doing that. Like a lot of these studios, it's like because we finally have the cultural influence and the volume of films and filmmakers and talent available, we can kind of cultivate our own like smaller version of Hollywood.
Mhm.
Not that you can't do both. There still isn't films being released in theaters like Angel Studio still
Mhm.
does that. Uh, but we can kind of get away with but we can kind of be our own thing for Christians. I don't know. Part of the article, and we can kind of get into that, is just is that good? Like I feel like for so long the end game was like make good stuff, be accepted as legitimate creators in the industry, and we
Mhm.
sort of like achieved that finally. And now it's a bit of an unknown. Of like, so do we just keep doing that and keep doing it better, or do we is the next stage to like well, now we have so much good stuff and we're so good, you don't even need Hollywood. We're just subscribe to the Wonder Project, subscribe to Angel Studio, whatever guild, subscribe to whatever new. I know there's a bunch of
Mhm.
new, even launching later this year, like new streaming platforms or, and I don't know.
So many new ones. Just so
Yeah.
many streaming platforms in general.
What do you subscribe to? Do you have any, like, what are
Right
your,
now, my what I'm paying for personally is I think Prime. Like,
Yeah, because
to watch stuff, I think that's it. I mean, I have Spotify,
do you do
but I
Prime
used
because of watching or because of, like,
I just
Amazon
have
shipping?
had it's mainly because of shipping, I think, and I've had it like, I had this student deal for a long time, I just haven't canceled it, and I used to have Hulu, but my Spotify plan just changed, so I don't have it anymore. So, I'm running out of content. Well, that's impossible to run out of content, but right now I'm only subscribed personally to Prime Video.
Yeah, and I think that is relevant because I don't know what I don't watch a whole lot of, like, shows, my wife does. We have Disney, kids, and we watch things on Disney.
Mhm,
I think at various times I think we have Hulu. I don't think we have Netflix. Sometimes we switch back and forth and at different
mhm.
seasons. I have Peacock right now because I watch Olympics, and I'll cancel that once the Olympics are done. But it's kinda the idea that in theory, having all these, like, specifically Christian, like, having everything kind of contained in our own streaming platforms,
Mhm,
it's like, well, like, that's not an either or, like, you can have Netflix and Wonder Project, like, I think practically it is limiting because there's just only so much you can pay for, and I think
mhm.
as good as a lot of the faith-based stuff has gotten, I don't think it's good enough yet to where that's all I want, like, it's like
I mean, I don't think that's ever gonna be all that I want either, like, just faith-based stuff, like, there's edifying things and things that are secular and things that have more of an atheistic perspective. There's edifying things in that. And there's just like good filmmaking out there too. So I don't think I'm ever going to want a purely like just Wonder Project, even though they do make some good stuff because it's just so narrow.
yeah,
It's
because even
one
it's the lack of
yeah.
variety, like, it's like, I think in isolation, a lot of these, like, faith-based kinda drama, serious tear-jerking drama, uplifting human stories, like, those are good, I like those. I don't necessarily wanna watch, a dozen of those in a row, like, I
Yeah.
also wanna watch a sci-fi show or, like, a mystery or, like, and at least for now, maybe we'll get closer to that, like, there just isn't. A lot
Mhm.
of the faith-based stuff is very much still sort of in the, like, it's either a story about the Bible and they're Bible characters, it's a story about a famous Christian that did something, or it's like a like a drama where the characters are kind of Christian, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's faith stuff. But you don't have a lot of, it's not like horror movies are really on there and
Mhm.
adventure movies, or at least ones that can hold up to some of the other stuff. Like, you're not gonna see like
Yeah,
an
it's like
Avatar kind of movie or like
I
a
know.
Marvel
It's like
superhero movie.
they're picking genres to get good at one at a time, you know? It's like faith-based stuff, okay, we got The Chosen, we got House of David. Now it's time they're moving on to rom-coms with Solo Mio. Maybe they'll start developing their skill in that area, and so it's like one at a time. Maybe eventually we'll have you can what if The Collision does a horror movie?
And we need to the collision
Yeah.
the collision
Yeah.
plus, all
The
of our
Collision
own
Plus will stream our own halftime show next year. It'll be
perfectly,
great.
curated, our
Yeah.
Daniel and Naya's, interests. Um, but I don't know. I do think there is a sense that there I I don't know if I feel like we there for so long there was a clear, like, this is kinda what we want faith-based entertainment to be, and I feel like now there just isn't necessarily a clear it's almost like we're caught up in the, "Well, we need to just crank out more stuff, and we need platforms, and we need to that's what people are doing, and we need to pay for it now that we have popular shows, and we need to people want more content," and, like, that it's almost like we're just caught up in this system now of, like, that I don't know if a lot of, like, and I'm sure if you asked, like, specific filmmakers, what's the purpose for it? I mean, that's usually how I end my interviews with
Mhm.
whenever we get to talk to these people, "What do you hope people take away?" And it's not that, like, the individual creators don't have a hope for their own specific art, like, it's not like it's just purely, "I don't know." I think most of them
Yeah.
have some. I just think, like, overall, collectively, it just sorta seems like, well, the goal right now is just to make more of it, to get Christians to watch more content,
Mhm.
and then to create more content, to keep them engaged, to watch more content. I don't know, I think we've sorta lost some of the missional, like, and, like, I'm fine with, like, I don't I I'm glad for us to leave behind the, like, everything made by faith-based has to be, like, it's a film, but it also has to be like a gospel presentation because it has, this is what if a non-Christian watches this? So we got to make sure they get the gospel. And it's like I'm fine for us to move beyond that. Like, and I
Mhm.
think that is one of the advantages when you're kind of creating content for Christians is specifically is you just don't feel like you have to tack on to everything. Like, not that you don't do that for some things, but it's like it just takes away some of that burden of like, well, if it's in the theaters and if a non-Christian comes to see it, like this could be the only chance they hear the gospel, and which is silly on its own.
But
But
there's other ways, like, they can see that through the story, you don't have to stand up at the pulpit at the end of the movie and have an altar call. Like, God's hand works through art. You can see it in a painting. You can go and have an experience with God. And I think that a lot of streaming services or like creators who make stuff like that don't understand that or don't trust in the power of that.
yeah, and I would even say I think it's even less the creators as it is the people paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You're
easier
right.
to get people on board, Christians on board, bankroll some of this stuff. It's like, hey, this is gonna be a good movie that kind of inspires. It's gonna be fun and it's gonna be
Mhm.
families can go, like, yeah, that's good. But hey, this is gonna be a movie and it's gonna be mainstream, but we're gonna share the gospel. It's like, well, we can get behind that. And I think that does cater a lot of, or that does steer things towards, I think even against the will of some of the creators. Um, but I'm not, I just don't, for me, I just don't think it's, I mean, in some ways it comes down to even like we talked about last week with the Bad Bunny and the halftime show of, I think it's not a bad thing to be exposed to things that aren't perfectly aligned with yourself. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the dangers of, and I think you kind of see that with Christian radio already because it's already been very kind of segregated for years, kind of ahead of where we're going with films. But you can kind of get this like this echo chamber where it's like, okay, you subscribe to, and again, I keep using Wonder Project, and I know they have a lot of films that weren't faith based that they still like Rudy or some of these films that are still in there. Um, even like a movie, I think they have like Dead Poet Society, which I mean, that's not a faith based movie by any means. There's some
They
stuff in that
have
movie.
that? Oh,
I think they have an edited
so
version because
sad.
there's a couple things in that movie that wouldn't probably make the cut for faith
Yeah.
based. Um, but I think like the problem with some of these, if moving projecting into the future of like, hey, this is sort of our faith based, even if we have different genres and stuff. I just think you can get to a point where like every hero in every movie is like on your team. Like he believes what I believe. I'm gonna watch this and it's gonna affirm everything, my values, my view of the world, like my perspective on issues and social issues or whatever it is. Like it's very much affirmation, pat you on the back. Like people like you are heroes. And I think at times that's good to have. I just think it's also healthy to, I think that's part of the power of like films and stuff. Not that you want to just constantly be assaulted by godless filth or values,
Mhm.
but just to realize like there is other ways to see the world and there is other experiences and you can learn a lot from that. You can have your own views challenged and be like, or at least make you think about them a bit more and like,
Mhm.
okay, that this movie is making a good point. I haven't thought about that. Like, even if you don't change your opinion necessarily, you're
Mhm.
in that dialogue, which I think you just lose the more specifically you curate down to
Yeah.
like, it's all faith based. It's all about letting you feel good about yourself and what you believe. And you never have to be exposed to other worldviews. Like, we got you covered. You can watch
Mhm.
anything. I don't know. I don't think that's biblical. Like, I don't think that's the model that, obviously the Bible doesn't talk a lot about like entertainment, but it does talk about like being a presence in the world and what that looks like. And I don't think,
Literally, didn't Paul, like, just go when he was in Athens or somewhere in Greece, and I think it was Paul. Oh, no, now I'm testing my Bible knowledge. And he just went to where they were having, their conversations every day, and he just sat there, and he just learned about their mindset, their understanding of the world, about the people there, and then he got up and had conversations with them about God and about Jesus, and that was so, so effective, and he just understood where they were coming from and was able to be like, "Hey, Jesus is still, like, your Lord and can be your savior.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did that in I don't know if this is the one you're thinking of, but, like, on like, up on in Athens, up on there, like, the Acropolis on the hill,
Yeah, that's
and,
what
like,
I'm
looking at
thinking of.
the and it's like, it even says in that passage, like, before he starts the conversation, he's, like, walking around, he's looking at the idols and the different gods, and
Mhm,
which were essentially their stories, like, that was
mhm,
their mythology, the stories that kind of shaped them, and then he starts, like, quoting their poets and dialoguing with that, and but it's very much like he's having those conversations from within the culture as opposed
mhm,
to I mean, like, the people that Jesus criticized the most were those that, like, didn't do that, Like,
mhm.
the reason the Pharisees would criticize Jesus for, "Why are you having, like, dinner with all these pagans and these non-Christian, like, why aren't you just sort of up in our debating theology with the Pharisees over here in our own little community?" And he said, "Well, that's not really what Jesus that's not the model he set of, like, hey, just spend all your time among, like-minded people and just so you constantly kinda get affirmed and feel good." He's like, "No, I'm just gonna go have these conversations, like, out in the
Yeah.
world." And I don't know, so I encourage you guys to look at the article for and I don't necessarily come up with uh, like, I don't have a solution, necessarily, I was more just trying to pose the question of, like, do we kinda know what we want? Like, do we know like, are we should we be too quick to give up some of the earlier, like, more missional approach of not that, like, everything needs to be a gospel track in the disguise of a film, like, but just the idea that, like, the goal of, like, being at the table of within Hollywood, within the stories that are being told, whether we're creating or just engaging with films, like, maybe we shouldn't be too quick to, like, give up some of that ambition and, like, actually wanna be a part of the conversation as
Mhm,
opposed to, like, we're off in our own building. We have our own party now that's Christian, and I think I maybe even used the imagery in the article, but I feel like a lot of this stuff we're making still wants to contribute to the conversation. We have a lot to say. It's just hard to have a conversation when you're in different rooms. Like you're sort of shouting at each other for,
yeah,
here's those answers to your questions. Like, and I just don't think, obviously non-Christians and other people can find these stories if they pay for them. And I just think they're not going to, because I don't think a
nope.
lot of Christians are going to pay for it because
Nope.
there's too much to pay for. And I don't think
Mhm,
that it's compelling enough I think it's wishful thinking to think that a lot of people are going to add people that don't already, the choir isn't going to sign
mhm,
up for this to be preached to. Um, and maybe one verse, and then we can move to the next part of this podcast. But even I think of because it's a verse that gets used a lot in these conversations. At least I've seen Romans 12, verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." And I see that verse get used a lot in like these kind of conversations of, don't be conformed to the pattern of this world. Therefore, like pull out of the world and have your own, don't allow yourself to be shaped by these secular influences. And I just don't think that's what the verse is implying. Like
mhm,
I think the fact that, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, even this, then you'll be able to test and approve. Like it almost kind of implies that you're engaging with stuff that needs testing, like it's like, you need to be transformed so that as you're out in the world dealing with these different stories and narratives and beliefs and worldviews, like allow God to shape your mind so that as you're doing that, you can navigate that and you can see what's godly, what's not godly.
mhm,
But like you don't need to do that if you're never engaged with it. Like if all you're ever, if you're just in Bible study or, 24 hours a day, every day of the week, like reading your Bible on your own, like you don't necessarily need to have a transformed mind in that way to test because everything
mhm,
you're reading is God, is godly. And so I don't know. I just think, I think the biblical example is very much part of the world, part of the conversation, a light within the darkness. And kind of my main takeaway from the article that I tried to communicate in the article is just I feel like we're moving more towards like let's gather all the lights, you know, out of the darkness and let's all go
mhm.
here we'll have a very bright room, but like if you step outside, we're removing all the lights from out there, and like
Yeah.
we don't. I think even just you forget the reality of darkness because everything
You're
you're immersed
putting
in is light
yeah.
and Christian and salt, and it's like, well, you know, I think just the reminder that the arts can give us that like, no, there is more going on that Christians are called to.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Encourage you guys read the article. I would love to hear what you guys think and how you're navigating sort of that question. And I just think it's something to keep in mind as as you make your entertainment choices going forward. But speaking of choices and helping you make the right choice, the correct, objectively true, good, and
Mhm.
beautiful choice. The final segment of this podcast episode is things we like that you should like too. So Naya, do you do you like things that you think other people
I like a
should
lot
like
of
too?
things.
Well, what is
Yeah.
one thing that you like that others should like too?
Well, Dusty for his not for his birthday, that's in May. For Christmas, I got him tickets to go see Harry Potter, like the last Harry Potter movie, live in concert. So we went to the like symphony hall and they were showing the movie and then the orchestra was on stage in front of it and they would play the soundtrack to it and it was so they did incredible. It was really cool to watch like the screen too and see all the colors that would tell him, oh, the score starts now and it ends now and all of that stuff. It was just really cool and like there were some that is one movie that will make me cry like without fail every time. And so there were some like pinnacle moments when just the music would swell and it was like, oh my gosh, this is live. And it just was so poignant and so overwhelming and really, really good. Seeing a movie with a live orchestra. We should bring that back. We should
I
bring
know.
that
Well,
back.
I've been dying to. I think I probably saw the tickets and was tempted to the Harry Potter one that you went to. I've been wanting to go. They do that with Lord of the Rings, but they only do it in like they don't do it anywhere nearby. Like it's in like Chicago
Oh,
or like
I
there's
was
like
like,
other
really?
cities where they do
Yeah.
it, and it's like I would love to go and like see the whole movie. I did
Mhm.
see. Me and my brother went. It wasn't quite the same thing, but we saw Star Wars in concert, and they didn't play like the whole movie, but they would play like they would play moments where they had all the main songs, and they had like a massive screen, and they would show the like the imagery, and like the C3PO actor was like the MC of it, so he was there and he was like
Oh,
walking you through the
cool.
whole story, and they would play it. Um, but yeah, anything live theater like that, or like live musical. But I think
Yeah.
even to see a whole movie, I've never done that. Like to actually watch a movie, but
It
with
was really, really
um,
cool.
I feel
And
like that would be
yeah.
awesome.
And so much happens in that movie too that like it starts at Shell Cottage and then like you're at Gringotts and then you're at Hogwarts and Hogsmeade. It's crazy. It's
And the
so
music's fantastic in
just
those movies. I feel like
yes. It's
this,
so
the emotion of that would be,
was it I think it
um,
was Alexander Desplat that did the last one, maybe.
yeah, I know they had like sort of the who's who of composers for that, but I feel like just experiencing it that way, just to like, I don't know, I feel like in some ways the music kind of gets when you're watching a movie, like you experience the music and like you know the power of it, but there is sort of that disconnect. Like it is sort of just part of the background, but I feel like to watch a full movie and like actually have musicians playing it
Yeah.
just makes you realize like the music's the secret sauce of all these movies.
Yeah.
So
I
I need to do that at some
yeah.
point.
It's not the secret sauce, like, every single aspect is important, but it's definitely a big part of it,
It's the
I would
tastiest
say.
secret sauce of
I
of
don't know. I think I disagree with you on that.
um well, this is your week, so I'll let you be
Thank
correct
you.
on that. But next week will be when I share. So I know everyone will want to tune in next week to hear what I like because I tend to like some good things that other people should like. So we're excited to dive into it once again, as we do every Thursday. And we hope you will join us again next week for more conversations on faith and pop culture.